A sales pitch is basically a planned presentation of a product or service designed to get the buy-in of your customers, investors, partners, and stakeholders. Basically, it's an entrepreneur's attempt to convince another party to take a particular step in relation to the business, product, or service. A perfect sales pitch is one that takes into consideration what the end goal is and you deliver on it. So basically understanding what your target audience wants, meeting them at their point of knowledge and understanding, and then being able to communicate and address all their concerns with the objective of taking a required action. We're now going to talk about the 7 steps to conducting a winning sales pitch. Out of the 7 steps, one of the first and foremost and probably the most important steps in conducting a winning sales pitch is doing your due diligence, getting to know your customers, getting to know your audience. Preparation is key in any venture you're going to undertake. And if you're going into pitching to an audience, you need to understand different aspects of the audience. You need to understand their level of knowledge, especially as regards your product or service. Technical expertise is important so you don't go undersell or sell over the audience's level of knowledge. You also don't want to get too technical to an audience that is pretty much trying to just close the deal so you don't get them bored and you lose your audience. You also want to make sure that you've prepared enough to understand where they are along the purchase cycle. You want to make sure you also understand the benefits of your product and your unique selling points, so that when you're presenting them to the audience, you start with your best foot forward and you can use that for leverage during negotiations subsequently. The second step in conducting a winning sales pitch involves understanding your time and structure for the pitch. Basically, reconnaissance. You need to understand where you're pitching, you need to understand what tools are available and visual aids are available to give you a winning pitch. It's also a good idea to reach out to the organization or the body that is hosting your pitch. It's what professionals do. Don't be shy. That's what professionals do. It's worse if you get there and then you start asking weird questions like, do you have a projector? And then you get told things like, perhaps you should have told me earlier. It's professional to prepare and plan. Ask these things up front. Don't assume that the HDMI cable or the VGA cable or a Mac Windows compatibility issue is already something that they would have taken care of. Also understand the size and the setup of the room, and also understand perhaps even the time of day, because if you're pitching in the evening, you want to keep it short and sweet as opposed to an early morning pitch where everybody still has the energy levels. Third step in developing a winning pitch is to actually prepare your pitch. So what does this mean and what does this entail? A product or a service that you are pitching to a target audience needs to be properly understood. You need to be ready for any questions, and you need to be an authority on your product or service. There's nothing worse than you coming to present to an audience and them asking you questions and then you not being able to answer. It shows unprofessionalism and a lack of trust. You're better off not even going for the presentation. Also, in terms of getting your message across to the audience, don't read off slides. Don't come prepared to just read a generic slide. Take time to actually customize your message to your particular audience. If your audience is more, for instance, in the financial services sector, then you know it's all about getting more customers and reducing overheads and basically signing up new customers. If that is the case, that's the bottom line. That's the crowd you want to focus on, and that's the language you need to speak. It is also very important that you do your research on the actual audience themselves. Check LinkedIn, check profiles of the audience there. So by the time you're connecting with them, you have anecdotal information, you have jokes that are suitable for the audience, and then you can make that connection. It is always easier to succeed in a pitch if you start well and start strong. The fourth step in developing a winning sales pitch is in proactively identifying the key issues up front. The way we would advise you go about doing this is in actually engaging as much as possible a similar audience to the audience you're going to be presenting to, and trying to extract at least 5 to 7 of key areas that we suspect would come up during the conversations, and also practicing your responses to them. When they come up, it's always a good advantage to you if you come across as prepared and not having to or in front of the audience, because then that makes it look as if you don't really understand the solution and you're not a professional. The objective is to make sure that you come across as prepared and also willing to answer questions as they come along. If the questions come and you don't have the answer, it's better to write them down and communicate to the client that perhaps the subject matter expert is not in the room and you will get back to them at a subsequent time, as opposed to trying to wing it. The fifth step in developing your winning sales pitch is in ensuring that you have good visual aids to support your pitch. Don't show up at a presentation looking to read off slides. If people wanted to hear your voice alone from beginning to end, they could have had a phone call. If people wanted to just read from your slides, they could have just gotten your product description brochure or checked it off from your website. People are visual in nature. They want to experience what it is that you're pitching. They want to see it, they want to feel it. If possible, touch it. If not, make sure that you have enough material for the audience to be able to make an informed decision. Let them see it, touch it, and experience it. The sixth step for developing your winning sales pitch is practice. Yes, that fun word that everybody loves to do, practice. If you don't practice, you are going to fail. It is not something that everybody wants to hear. It's not fun. But even if you have a natural flair for public speaking, practice. Even if you are the subject matter expert, practice. Even if you've been doing this for about 20 years, practice. You know why? If you get in front of the audience and you're thrown a curveball, you're thrown a question that you didn't anticipate or you've never come or heard before, if you haven't been practicing, then you can stall, because that's the difference between cognitive learning and actually cramming. Practice, practice, practice. Practice in front of the mirror, practice in front of a crowd, practice in front of your colleagues, practice in front of strangers if possible, but get that practice going on. So by the time you get in front of the audience, this becomes second nature to you. You have to practice. The seventh and probably one of the most overlooked steps in delivering a winning sales pitch is in planning for the next steps. Start with the end in mind. We said this right from the beginning. Now you have reached the end. What is the action you expect or want the audience to take? Assume that the audience is ready to take action immediately and be prepared. Also make sure that within 24 hours of your pitch, you send a thank you note via email. If possibly, even the traditional methods, a handwritten note is always well appreciated. But send a note to your audience, thanking them for the opportunity, recapping, and then also proposing next steps. Also, come prepared for negotiations. You never know. You might have delivered such a winning pitch deck that your client is ready to actually enter into formal negotiations. You don't want to be caught unprepared.